going to be two of us today.
Yeah.
For our cohorts who are traveling around the world one way or the other. But the Vikings do get a win. They're coming home from London with a win, 21-17 over the Cleveland Browns. And it was certainly going to be no gimme game, as everybody anticipated, with the laundry list of injury-related issues this team is facing. Even though you look across the field and you see the Cleveland Browns as a franchise that's been
historically bad.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. That's one way to put it, no doubt about it. But the Vikings found a way. They were down late in the fourth quarter. They overcame the injuries. They overcame the turnovers that happened in this game to get a win. They go into the bye week at 3-2. They found a way to get it done, and that's all that matters.
Look, they needed this win because the last thing you wanted was to head into the bye week with back-to-back losses, and then coming out of that bye week, you got to take on the Eagles, then you got to take on the Chargers, then you got to take on the Lions, and I would say the Ravens, but the Ravens are looking like a doormat right now, especially with no Lamar Jackson, but it was vital for them to get this victory, and like you talked about, a lot of injuries, especially up front. You saw that come into play. Carson Wentz was sacked several times, but this team persevered through their own adversity that they created, a.k.a. Jordan Addison, and then with all the other injuries and fumbles that they had, they found a way to win this game. They found a way to put a drive together when it mattered most, and that's what you wanted to see.
And that's where I want to start is up front, really, with the offensive line. 3 sacks given up on the day from the Vikings offensive line, which I have to be perfectly honest, if you would have told me before the game, if they would have given up 3 sacks, I said, I'll take it. With Blake Brandel starting his first game at center, Joe Huber making his first NFL start at left guard, Justin School starting at right tackle. It's a patchwork offensive line right now. 3 sacks shouldn't be the end of the world. So kudos to that line for upholding their end of the bargain, bending as much as they could, didn't fully break. I thought the line gave them a chance to win today, especially against a very talented front four of the Cleveland Browns.
Shout out to Walter Rouse, who came in at the end of the game. Because Christian Darrisaw was on a snap count at the end of the game. So you're talking about on that game-winning drive for Carson Wentz and the rest of the crew. They had 4 backup offensive linemen in the game. So shout out to them and what they were able to do. As head coach Kevin O'Connell said after the game, my mind probably wanted Christian Darrisaw in there. He's like, but we have to do what's best for our players, And after he played, 40 snaps versus the Bengals, he turned around and had 80 versus the Steelers. So he said just wanted to manage that. And I think they did a pretty good job of that. But, before the game, during Vikings Game Day Live this morning, I totally went on the record and said that the Vikings were going to give up more than 4 sacks today. So
I would have been with you.
I stand corrected.
I would have been with you 100%.
The offensive line played well.
Well, they not only did they play, they played fairly well, but also you saw it in the first half too. They moved Carson Wentz, right? They bootlegged him a lot. They got the ball out of his hands very quick. They threw and ran away from the opposite side of Myles Garrett a lot.
Smart.
So it was very smart, like you said, of Kevin O'Connell really to structure that in the game plan today to get the ball out of his hands quick. And like I said, in the first quarter, didn't see as much of it in the second half, but we saw Carson Wentz get bootlegged out a few times, getting away from pressure. I thought they had a pretty nice game plan here today.
I think so, too. And a reporter asked Kevin O'Connell about that after the game. He said, we did what we had to do in order to win the game. That's get the ball out, stay away from Myles Garrett as much as possible. And I think that Carson Wentz just delivered when needed to. You know what I'm saying? He did have a couple of sequences where it's like, wish he could have did a little bit better with that ball placement or something like that. But at the end of the day, he found 18. He found number 3. And those are the guys you need to find when the game is on the line.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So kudos to Carson Wentz for leading this team now to a 3-2 overall record. One thing on Christian Darrisaw when they were talking about managing his snaps, I thought to myself, and I wish, somebody had asked that over in London, you couldn't have managed his snaps to allow him to play in the fourth quarter? Maybe take a few plays off in the first half?
He did do that versus the Bengals,
He
too.
did.
I don't know. I think it was more of a we need you scenario, and we already have 3 backups, and we're not going to pull you out this game right now. If I had to guess,
if you fall too far behind early on, I guess it wouldn't matter in the fourth quarter. Then now,
you know what I'm saying? And then if you take him out, you're talking about Justin Skule and Walter Rouse taking on Myles Garrett for more than 2 drives. You're talking about an entire game. You don't want that matchup.
That's why Kevin O'Connell is coaching there, and that's why I have to talk about it right here. This is where I'm perfectly comfortable in this chair right now doing the talking. Defensively, listen, the Cleveland Browns coming into this game hadn't scored more than 17 points in a game all season long. They were held to 17 again here today. Dylan Gabriel making his first start at quarterback. Didn't turn the ball over, to his credit. I would have thought that Minnesota's defense probably would have eaten him alive at some point in the game, but Dylan Gabriel did all that he could.
Right.
But the area of defense that I want to really focus in on is another 100 yards given up on the ground today. Quinshon Judkins, 110 yards on the ground. That's 400-yard rushers in 5 games for Minnesota. They spent a lot of money on this defensive front in the offseason. What's going on here?
I want to take you back to last season. You remember all the games that Blake Cashman missed?
I do, yes.
Mm-hmm. And every time that he missed a game, excluding one, they gave up 100-yard rushers. Now, I'm not saying that he's the sole reason for teams staying under 100, but I think when you talk about Ivan Pace, he is a Tasmanian devil. The team calls him that all the time. Sometimes he can be a little wild, though, and sometimes he can miss some tackles. Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, they're not doing a phenomenal job in the run game. They do well at certain moments when needed. They do well, getting after the quarterback, not as much as they should, as much as they're getting paid. But I think that's your area of concern right now, that interior defensive front. And I think Jonathan Vilma spoke on it, very well during the broadcast. He was like, if your two interior defensive linemen are giving up pressures and things like that, there's no way for your linebackers to make plays because that offensive line is getting to the second level. I think that's a big problem right now. I think the guys that are getting paid the most money interior-wise are not living up to, their worth right now. Jalen Redmond, a guy who's not getting paid any money compared to those two, is making more plays than them. And I think that's a big problem for the Vikings.
I definitely think it's a problem. It's an issue that I think Brian Flores is going to have to take a really hard look at and try to correct moving forward because, listen, for as much talent as this defense has, they're too good to be giving up yards on the ground the way they have. We saw what happened with Bijan Robinson a few weeks ago. Now, Bijan is a special kind of back. Who's to say that Quinshon Judkins can't turn into that special kind of back too? Because he's got a lot of talent, that young kid. But this is an area where I did not expect Minnesota to struggle, and they have struggled.
Before the season, I'm with you. Before the season, I'm like, oh, they're stopping the run. They finally got some horses up front. They're going to be able to have their way with everybody, but I think that's not been the case.
No, it hasn't.
Since the season started. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it starts with those two guys that they pay a lot of money to, several $1 million to, Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. I just think they need to play better. I think you don't hear their name enough when you're talking about run game, stopping running backs in the backfield and things like that. Now, do they show up when needed at the end of the game and get those pressures? Absolutely. But like you said, Judkins, Bijan Robinson, other running backs like Kenneth Gainwell, they're having their day. having a day with this defensive line. And that opens up everything for the rest of the teams to play action. That's why you didn't see Dylan Gabriel so rushed and so, phased out there because he seemed to be always in control. Now, his accuracy was not good because he missed several wide receivers in this game. But I think that he got to stay on pace. He got to stay within his clock that he had and that Coach Kevin Stefanski drew up for him. Hey, just get the ball out of your hands. Don't hang on to it. Don't let Jonathan Grenard get home and things like that. So I think it all starts with those two interior guys because they weren't getting enough pressure on Dylan Gabriel.
Right.
And that's why Dylan Gabriel didn't throw an interception. Now, he did take a couple of sacks, but I would have expected him to play way worse than what he did today, making his first start against this Brian Flores defense. But he had a lot of poise, and that defensive front didn't get after him enough.
2 sacks on the day for the Minnesota Vikings defense. Now, it was enough to get the job done. But going back to the offense for just a moment, you did touch on a name that we do have to talk about this a little bit. Jordan Addison was benched in the first quarter because he missed a walkthrough. And listen, I'm not Jordan Addison's father. I'm not, here to really pile on anybody. That rubbed me the wrong way today. Really rubbed me the wrong way today. You can't have it. Listen, this is your third year now in the league. You are a professional athlete. You are expected to perform. And on top of that, too, you just came back from a 3-game suspension. Where's your head at, young fella? Where's your head at? That's inexcusable to me. And you even heard Justin Jefferson say after the game, I need to stick close to stick a little closer to him to kind of make sure that his head stays right. And I don't love seeing. Now, granted, Jordan Addison came out and had the play of the day in the fourth quarter, caught the game-winning touchdown. But once you're coming off a 3-game suspension, you missed a walkthrough overseas? How does that happen?
Not being locked in, like Justin Jefferson said.
That's crazy to me.
Now, it is crazy because, look, for those of you who don't know, when you play football and you're traveling with your team, your whole entire day is laid out, except for your one off day that they give you, or two. I don't know how many they had while they were in London, but everything is planned to a T. You have your schedule the week of. So if you have a walkthrough on Wednesday, Monday what time your walkthrough is on Wednesday, more likely than not.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what time it is Wednesday morning, you're getting a text or you're getting an email, and they're letting you know. So I just think he's being irresponsible. Like you said, this is his third incident in 3 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. First, it was speeding, going 100 miles an hour, saying you had to get home to your dog. All right, we'll give you a pass for that one. That's your first mistake. Rookies make mistakes. Then you get, caught sleeping at the wheel. You get suspended for 3 games this year. All right, so it's all right, you're back. You have a good game last week. You go over 100 yards. And then it's boom, the very next week, you're missing a walkthrough. It's like you are a centerpiece of this team, and the only person he's hurting right now is himself.
No doubt.
Because when he goes to go get his big contract next year, he's going to want to get paid at the beginning of next year or towards the end. They're going to be like, whoa, wait. You've had a history of trouble. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up that fifth-year option, and we're going to make you earn it. So then you got to go out there and go play. So then it's kind of like, all right, well, the Vikings will be playing with the double-edged sword because it's like, all right, do you pick up that option and not sign him before and let him go test free agency? Probably something you don't want to do. But something I told somebody earlier. When you grow up being a number one wide receiver your entire life and you've always had the football every single game, you're getting 8 to 10 targets, it can mess with your psyche a little bit when you're number two. And like, hey, I got to go do this, but I'm not getting what I want. But he's not a guy to go out there and complain and, pout at the quarterback or call out Kevin O'Connell. But I'm not making an excuse for him. But I think mentally, there's something, I won't say mentally something going on, but I think there's a hurdle you have to overcome in the National Football League when you go from being a Biletnikoff receiver in the college, the best ever, best in that season, to basically saying, hey, I'm the number two behind Justin Jefferson. He's the focus. He's going to get all the targets. I know I'll eat when I get an opportunity, but I think that's something. I think it was a boneheaded mistake for him. Who knows what he was doing in London? Probably shopping, whatever the case may be, but you just cannot miss a walkthrough, especially when you're a vital piece of the team like he is.
It's self-inflicted wounds, like you say.
Yes.
It's self-inflicted, and that's really the most disappointing part of it all, because at this point, I don't know how many more opportunities that really kind of need to come across your mind that make you think that, boy, I better get myself in line here, because in the National Football League, probably one of the biggest mistakes that you can make in this league is thinking you're irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Because you're not. You're not irreplaceable. There are plenty of guys who want to get up there and get that opportunity to be the number two wide receiver in this offense. There are a lot, especially on your own team, who would love the opportunity to do so. So
fortunately for him, he's talented, and I think that's why he has the leash that he has, because he is uber talented.
I agree that he's talented for sure, but not just in the world of football and pro sports. Your talent has to outweigh your baggage. And right now, Jordan Addison's talent still outweighs his baggage, in my opinion. It still does. I mean, even though nobody condones anything that he's done off the field that has gotten him into trouble, has he done things that are so egregious that make you think he's not worth the trouble? I don't think we haven't reached that point at all so far with Jordan
Which is why I think he keeps doing what he's doing, because he knows that he's talented and he knows he can get away with things that maybe other players wouldn't be able to get away with. Because if this is like a number 4, number 5 receiver, a practice squad guy, they're getting cut. They're getting cut. They're getting sent back home. Like, how do you miss a walkthrough when we're out overseas? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, if this was a practice squad guy, he's gone. But because it's Jordan Addison, a first-round draft pick, he has a little bit more leeway, but not making excuses for him. He needs to be better. He needs to be a role model. He needs to lead for this team, because he can be a leader because his talent is that good. So he needs to be held. I'm glad KOC, I said it on Twitter, I'm glad they held him accountable and suspended him for that first quarter.
You have to.
I'm glad they did that.
You have to.
Because what does that send to the rest of your team if you miss a walkthrough and we don't discipline you?
Absolutely.
So I love that what they did. Jordan Addison, we hope you get it together, brother. You got a lot of talent, man.
Wake up, young fella. I mean, it's game time.
Because you know what Kwesi's going to say in a couple of years to your agent. Well, why should we give you $70 million guaranteed? Like, if we give you $70 million guaranteed, will you be mentally locked in? Will you make sure that you're on your best behavior when you're away from the facility? Like, that's something we're questioning right now. So why should we make this big investment on you? And I think that's something they always talk about. Why would we give a player X amount of money if we can't depend on them to be reliable? Like Justin Jefferson, there's no stain on his record. Like, he came in superstar from day one. He's at every practice. He's not missed any games, anything like that, for incidents off the field. And I think when you have a guy like Jets, and then he's, upholding the standard and the bar so high, everyone has to adhere to that. And I think maybe that's a little tough for Jordan Addison, but you got to get on the same page with Jets, man, because this team needs you.
That's going to be a very interesting contract negotiation. That's something we'll talk about in the future, because you and I were on here a few weeks ago, and I was talking about how I didn't love the T. Higgins deal, because part of the reason why is not because he's not talented. Same deal with Jordan Addison, not because he's not talented, but am I really going to commit that much financial resources to wide receiver when I already have Justin Jefferson over here, and I may need to use that money, whether it's in the trenches, maybe it's at corner. I'm going to stand by it. Wide receiver is a lot easier to replace than left tackle, than corner, than right tackle, than defensive end. That's a lot easier to replace.
No facts.
Sorry to say it, but it's true.
Facts.
A lot easier to replace.
Facts.
We'll talk about that in the next coming year, in the next offseason. I'm sure that's going to be a conversation coming up. But now you sit here at 3-2 with this team. You're hanging on by a thread We know what the next 4 games are going to look like, as you mentioned. We were talking about Philadelphia after the bye week. Philadelphia at home, short week at the Chargers. Then you're at Detroit. They're at Detroit, right? It's
I believe so.
Yeah, at Detroit, because Detroit is here on Christmas. So, yes, it is at Detroit. And then the Baltimore Ravens come to town. So we know what those next 4 games look like. You're sitting there at 3-2. Hopefully you get healthy in the bye week. We don't know if J.J. McCarthy is coming back yet. Right. We hope that Donovan Jackson is going to be back at left guard. Andrew Van Ginkel out again with the neck. We'll have to revisit the Blake Cashman situation as well. So these are some moving parts that you hope to get back. But how do you feel about this team right now, 3-2 going into the bye?
I think Kevin O'Connell said it best in his post-game presser, like, we have to find out our identity. And I don't think they know their identity. Because coming into the season, I think they had a notion in their head of what this team would be, but then injuries just took over. It just decimated this team. So you just have to revamp. You have to adjust on the fly, where now it's like you get a chance to, all right, let me take a step back. Let me see exactly what's going on. Like, all right, Christian Darrisaw, he's probably going to be good to go. Ryan Kelly, probably going to have problems with him all season long. If you have 2 concussions in 4 games, you play a very physical spot at center where you're going to pick up a lot of blitzes. You're going to get a lot of hits to your head. So is he durable? Can he sustain a full NFL season? That's up in the air right now. And then you talk about Brian O'Neill, his health when he comes back. So Will Frost has been inconsistent, but I think Donovan Jackson is going to miss 1 more game after the bye because they placed him on IR, and he's technically only missed 3 games. You have to miss 4.
Right.
Same with Aaron Jones. So it's hard to say. And then J.J. McCarthy, like, what are you going to get when he comes back? You know what I'm saying? I love, after the game, I think a London reporter asked Kevin O'Connell, Carson's won 2 games. He's looked good. Does he put himself in the position to be a starter? And Kevin O'Connell said, we did what we had to do to win the game. I like how he avoided that question. Like, stop asking me that question right now. You're trying to make us have some type of internal drama, and I think that's the last thing they need right now. But that being said, the verdict isn't out on this team yet, Pierre, because the defense has lived up to their potential in certain areas, in certain aspects of the game, but not all of them. The offense has flashed, and it's shown that, look, if I can just get the ball to 18 and I can get the ball to T.J. Hockenson when he doesn't have to chip every single play to help out our tackles, we can be explosive. You know what I'm saying? But can they be consistent? And I think that's to be seen.
I'm glad you brought up that Kevin O'Connell quote at the end of the game, because I do want to touch on that for a moment. I know why he avoided the question.
Heck yeah.
However, I did find it interesting, though, that he would not commit to J.J. McCarthy. That struck me. It's not because he has a lack of faith in Carson Wentz, but when you're asked that question, to me, the easy answer is, if J.J. McCarthy is healthy, he is our starter.
Right.
He didn't say that. That stuck with me. That if somebody wants me to just glaze over that and pretend like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain on that question, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. What I didn't hear rang louder than what I did hear. Now, I would agree. I know that Kevin O'Connell is probably thinking to himself, we don't have a quarterback controversy in-house. J.J. McCarthy is going to be our guy when he's healthy. Carson Wentz has done a pretty decent job in his absence. He hasn't done enough, in my opinion, to win the starting job. But I'm just going to say that Kevin O'Connell's non-answer to that question, that stuck with me. If he thought I wasn't paying attention, he's sorely mistaken. I was absolutely paying attention.
I kind of glossed over it. I glazed over it, like you just said. Like, I heard that and I just laughed. I was like, you know, the media, sometimes as everyone lumps us together, can sometimes just be very persistent with the storyline. And if you're inside locker rooms, you know how much stuff like that, they say it doesn't divide you, but it can divide you.
Sure.
Because people have small conversations at their lockers, and guys are like, look, this is what I'm saying. I think we should go with this. And then if the coach doesn't do this, now you're questioning the coach and things like that. So it's like, all right, we're going to keep everything in-house. Like, if he is going to play, like, he's going to play. But like Carson Wentz stats, 5 touchdowns to his 2 interceptions in his 3 starts, a 41.4 QBR, which ranks 26th in the National Football League out of 32 quarterbacks. So when we're talking about Carson Wentz, is he great? No. Like, he's proved that time and time again throughout his career that he's a backup for a reason. And I think it's something like, all right, well, say, for instance, Nick Mullins. You got some wins with Nick Mullins, but he's not the answer.
Sure.
You got some wins with Josh Dobbs, but he wasn't the answer. And I think long term, I don't think he's the answer. So why would you make another guy wait to figure out what you got in him when you potentially have 4 more years with him, 3 after this season. So it's like you got to figure out what you have, and you got to stop delaying that, because if you don't, we have the same storyline every single season.
There's no question about it. I totally agree with you on that. My answer to that would be, however, if J.J. McCarthy goes out and he comes back to start against the Eagles, maybe starts the next 2 games, if he doesn't even come back until perhaps the Thursday night game against the Chargers, if he goes out and he has a couple of bad games, the media is not going to be the one trying to divide a locker room. The players in that locker room are smart enough to see this guy is not getting the job done.
Smart.
This guy is not giving us the best chance to win.
True.
Carson Wentz is not a superstar, but does he give us a better chance to win than J.J. McCarthy? The players, you know how it is. The players absolutely will be thinking that internally, because if they look at J.J. McCarthy and he doesn't get the job done in a couple of games, you're going to have to start wondering, because you can't wait much longer. You can't wait. The NFL is going to pass you by.
For sure.
You're going to have to get production one way or the other. Now, I agree with you fully that you made an investment. You want to see your return on investment, and he's got a lot more runway than Carson Wentz does, and that's why you want to give him a longer leash.
Absolutely.
As he should. I think you absolutely should do that. But I was struck by what he didn't say as opposed to what he did say. And I thought, and when I heard the question, at first I had the same mentality as you. When I first heard the question, I thought, well, come on now. This is, there's no controversy brewing here. But when I didn't hear, when he's healthy, J.J. McCarthy will be our starter. When I did not hear that,
right,
that stuck with me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about some of former coaches who in college football who have came to the podium and ranted after a game when maybe they won a game and it wasn't necessarily pretty, and then the first thing a reporter asks is, well, why couldn't you guys do this and why couldn't you do that? And coach like, we just won. Yeah. Like, why do you want to talk about
Brian Kelly, LSU
exactly.
Ago,
so it's like, or Texas A&M coach, I believe, did the same thing. So it's just like, look, why are you asking me about JJ? JJ didn't play in this game. JJ had nothing to do with this victory on the field. Maybe he did behind the closed doors with the prep with Carson Wentz and things like that. But it's like, hey, let's just focus on this right now.
Sure.
We're headed into the week. You guys can ask me that on Wednesday when I have my media availability or Monday, whatever day he has his media availability, and he tells us who's going to be the starting quarterback. Because that's going to be the first question asked. How is JJ's health? Is JJ going to practice? Like, is JJ going to be the starting quarterback? So it's like, let's address that when it's time to address it. And I think right now he's answered that question several times. First things first is getting J.J. McCarthy healthy. When J.J. McCarthy is 100% healthy, then we will have a conversation about if he's going to be the starter or not. But apparently he's not 100% healthy, because if he was, he would have been playing.
Right.
So I think that's why Kevin O'Connell dodged that question, because, look, he's tired of having that question asked him every single week, and whether it's on a Wednesday media availability or a Sunday after a game. It's like, we just went 2-1 without our starting quarterback. We did fairly decent. We weathered the storm with backup offensive linemen. We still may have some backup offensive linemen when JJ comes back. We still won't have Aaron Jones, like Mr. Reliable. So it's like, let's focus on that when we can. We just came. What did he say? My brain hurts right now after that final drive.
Sure.
Brain hurts because he had to do so much to put his team in position to win. And like he said, don't you guys worry about where Myles Garrett is in this rush. Let me coach you and get you in the right places, and then we'll all figure it out together. So I think he's just worried about right now what he can do to help his team win, and that's why he dodged that question.
Well, he certainly did a good job of putting his team in a position to win today. They were able to get the win in London, but it's the bye week now. Yeah. Obviously, health is the first and foremost priority for this team as they look to get healthy. But let's take a quick peek ahead as we wind things down here. The next game is going to be in a couple of weeks back here at US Bank Stadium at home against the Philadelphia Eagles, who lost today. They lost today for the first time. Offensively, this team continues to struggle.
Yeah,
they continue to struggle.
Run the ball.
They can't. I mean, they can't throw the ball either. I mean, my gosh, kudos to A.J. Brown for not requesting a trade at this point, because in my mind, A.J. Brown is being absolutely wasted on that team right now.
Absolutely.
So when we look ahead to the Philadelphia Eagles, defensively though, this team is pretty nasty.
Yeah,
they can get after it.
Oh, yeah,
they can
smart.
make life heck for a young quarterback like J.J. McCarthy if he is to be the starter in that game. How do we like this game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings?
I'm trying to pull up the stats right now from the game today for the box score.
They lost 21-17 to Denver. I mean, they blew I believe it was 14-0 lead.
Yeah, they had a 14-0 lead.
Yeah, 14-0 lead.
A.J. Brown had 5 catches for 43 yards. Devontae Smith did have a bounce back. So apparently, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown were a little frustrated, and how they voiced their frustrations was vastly different.
Yeah.
But Devontae came out with 8 catches, 114 yards. But that being said, their defense is nasty. Very, very nasty. Right. They have talent all around. That being said, if you can string drives together and don't turn the ball over, you give yourselves a chance, just like you do in any football game. And so I think a lot of people are penciling in that game as a loss. I don't know, because I think Jalen Hurts has a problem reading defenses and getting through his progressions, which is why he tucks the ball and runs a lot. He tried not to do that so much today compared to the previous weeks in the regular season, but I think he's going to have some troubles with the Brian Flores defense, and I think the Vikings will have their chance, especially if you don't allow any 40 to 50-yard runs from Saquon Barkley or let him, squirt out and stuff like that.
That's the big key in that game. We were just talking about the run defense, yeah.
You keep him in check. Don't let him go for 100 yards. You open up everything else. Like, you open up your entire playbook for your defense to be creative, be exotic, and get after Jalen Hurts and confuse him. But if you allow Saquon Barkley to go out there and just gash you for 5 to 7 yards at a time, it's going to be a long day, because if he's gashing you, well, here comes the read option with Jalen Hurts. And then the read option comes, and then here comes the play action passes to A.J. Brown and the deep passes that he loves and stuff like that. So I think they have to control the run. But I think, though, whoever plays quarterback, you can't go 3 and out all the time. You got to have some long, sustained drives, 14, 15, 16-play drives where you wear that defense down and you make them earn every single, tackle that they get and things like that. So I think it's a very winnable game. I don't think many people, maybe Vegas, won't be giving them, They
will not be favored in that game.
They won't be favored at all. But I think that if they can play the way that they did today and take away those 2 turnovers that they had, I think they give themselves a chance to win.
The Vikings aren't going to be favored in that game against Philadelphia, but did you see how the Arizona Cardinals lost today? Anything can happen, and I mean anything can happen in the National Football League. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Vikings Now podcast, everybody, for Ahmad Hicks. Oh, by the way, this is part of the show where Jim normally says, how do you get the podcast, Ahmad?
Apple, Spotify, Fox9.com. Go to YouTube, what is that called? Backslash
or / I can never tell which one is which.
But you just put a little slash in and type in Fox9 and search Vikings Now. You'll be able to find all this.
Should be able to find it, no problem. We appreciate you guys joining us, and we will be back. Oh, wait. We won't be back next week. Give us a couple of weeks, too. We might have one in the bye week, depending on what kind of news strolls out during the bye week.
Knowing this team, there's always something that's coming out, some type of update.
Maybe we'll see you next week, but if we don't see you next week, we'll see you in 2 weeks after the Vikings take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Once again, the Vikings a winner today over the Browns, 21-17, 3-2 going into the bye week. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Woo!